Bernie Sanders has introduced an AI bill that could give $7 trillion to Americans. And this bill introduces a one-time tax of 50% directly on the equities of these AI companies. But why exactly did he introduce this bill? Is the reasoning behind this bill even correct? What could be the implications of this bill? Will this bill be even passed? So let's try to find out the answers to these in this video. So first, let's understand why did Bernie Sanders introduce this bill. Bernie says that the current AI models have been developed on the collective intelligence of humanity. That is, our books, our songs, our art, our code, our images and ideas and so on. And he says that it was stolen from us without our permission and without any compensation. And now these AI models are deriving economic value and are also competing with humans from whom this data was taken. Let's see directly what did Bernie Sanders say exactly.
The question is, who will own and control the future? Who will benefit from AI and who will be hurt by it? Will the future of humanity be determined by a handful of some of the wealthiest people on the planet who have promoted and developed AI with no democratic input in order for them to become even richer and more powerful? The foundation of AI is our collective human intelligence. Our books, songs, artwork, journalism, computer code, scientific research, videos, conversations, images, and ideas spanning generations. It is our tweets, our Facebook posts, our TikTok videos, our Reddit comments. It is everything that human beings produce and that is absorbed into the digital world. That's not just my opinion. According to Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, AI models were trained on our, quote, collective experience, knowledge, and learnings of humanity. The reality is that big tech oligarchs have fed this knowledge into their AI models without permission, without acknowledgement, and without compensation. In other words, the creative work of many millions of people, writers, artists, musicians, journalists, teachers, scientists, and ordinary people, has been stolen by the wealthiest people in the world. Madam President, the time has come for us to reclaim what was stolen from us. Since AI is built on the collective knowledge of humanity, the wealth it generates must benefit humanity. Not just Elon Musk, not just Jeff Bezos, not just Mark Zuckerberg, or Larry Ellison and the other multi-billionaires who have invested hundreds of billions into the development and implementation of AI. And that is why, Madam President, in the coming weeks, I will be introducing the American AI Sovereign Wealth Fund Act. This legislation would give the public a direct ownership stake in the largest AI companies in our country. How would it do that? Through a one-time 50% tax, not on the profits of the largest AI companies in the U.S., but something that is far more valuable than that, the stock. If passed, this legislation would do two critical things. First, it would give the American people a direct role in determining the future of this technology. No longer would the future of AI and the transformation of human life that it will bring be dictated by a handful of big tech oligarchs. These people do not have the right to determine the future of humanity. Under this bill, the federal government would have the power through its voting shares and an equal representation on each company's board to block decisions that hurt the public and to push for policies that help them. Secondly, this legislation would guarantee that the trillions of dollars potentially created by AI are used to improve the lives of all of us, not simply to make the richest people in the world even richer.
So his reasoning goes that Americans should get a fair share of this value that's being generated, which he says could be enforced by building an AI sovereign fund by taxing these AI companies just for one time, but it would be a 50% tax on the equities of these AI companies. So this would be done by creating a separate independent commission that would be answerable to the president and the Senate, and these would be the ones who would be managing the fund, as well as they would get voting rights in these AI companies. And this is applicable only for AI companies who are spending more than $200 million on various data centers and AI related stuff. So regarding the stealing of data from humans to train these AI models, Bernie is quite right there. One of the examples that we can see regarding this is how Anthropic had trained its Opus model by feeding it the data from pirated books. So without permission, they had downloaded a huge database of these books and used it to train their AI models. And there was recently a really nice diagram that was tweeted on X, which illustrated how there are copyright lawsuits going on in America and how various major companies are suing AI companies for infringing their copyright to train their AI models. And there was also this database release where songwriters and creators could check whether their song was being used to train AI models. And now these AI models generate songs similar to what human songwriters and musicians have created. So Bernie cites how there are more than 100 sovereign funds like this that already exist around the world. And one of the examples that he gives is regarding the Alaska Permanent Fund, which was established 50 years ago, and it still pays dividends to Alaskans. So in the year 2022, it had given $3,284 to every Alaskan. In 2023, that figure was $1,312, and in 2024, that was about $1,000. And note that these funds were from the dividends from oil extraction in Alaska. So the reasoning there had been that oil is a natural resource, and if companies are extracting natural resource that actually belong to Alaskans, they should get a fair share of that value, especially if it is being extracted at a massive scale. Texas also has a sovereign fund known as the Texas Permanent Fund, which was established way back in 1845, and that distributed about $5 billion to Texas schools for 2026 and 2027. But if we look back, we might ask, why do we really need an AI sovereign fund? So when we look at AI leaders and CEOs, and we look at their statements, we hear from them time and again saying that we would need some kind of UBI in future. And UBI means universal basic income, in which every citizen is paid a certain amount to ensure that he lives and survives, especially when there is a very high rate of unemployment. And it is said that by these AI companies and AI CEOs that AI is likely to cause a very high unemployment rate in the coming years. So we would need some kind of universal basic income, according to these AI leaders. Now, we haven't yet seen such a mass unemployment yet, and AI models still struggle to actually be productive and fully automate the work of humans. But these AI models are rapidly getting better and better. Some companies are already using it for laying off many of their employees, and it is affecting job market in some or the other way, such as we know that the layoffs that had happened at Meta, at Block, and at various other companies. If there has to be some kind of universal basic income, it would mean that someone would need to pay for it. Otherwise, it would not be sustainable, and it could run out of funds in just a few years. And logically speaking, if the data of every citizen from every country was taken to train these AI models, then every human on this planet whose data was taken deserves to be compensated. But that still sounds pretty far off to actually enforce. So at least the Americans are the ones who might. So if that's true, then it's Americans who should be getting something at least from this. And another important thing which many AI scientists say is that AI companies are racing to build super intelligent AI. They are racing towards super intelligence, and it's something that could affect the lives of all the people on this planet. Not just lives, but livelihoods as well, economically and socially. So other humans should also have a say to decide whether this should be developed or not developed. So by taxing 50%, the representatives in this independent commission would be getting governance rights. So it could mean that American citizens could also have a say to decide the future of AI in their society. And that share is equal to that of AI companies as well, which is 50%. So we will briefly look at some of the important contents of this bill. So on page 13, it says that the assets of the fund shall be managed by the Independent Commission for Democratic AI, and that it would be used to provide for direct payments to the American people to ensure that every man, woman, and child in US has a decent and dignified standard of living, and so on. And one of the most important parts is that on page 14, part 3, it says that no distribution or amount appropriated from the fund under this subsection shall require the sale or other disposition of the equity interest held in the fund. This means that the fund would not be required to sell the equities in order to pay Americans. The dividends itself would be enough for paying American people. And another clause, which is the fourth one, says that there would be no bailout for any AI company from this fund. This means that if any of the applicable AI companies fail or become insolvent, the funds from this AI sovereign fund would not be used to save those AI companies. So this means that the citizens fund would be protected from AI companies becoming insolvent. And then on page 15, it says that the commission shall consist of 7 commissioners appointed by the president, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. And then they give various clauses regarding the minimum requirements for each of this member to be fulfilled. For example, fourth one says that one of the people appointed should have experience in management of some kind of public pension fund or an endowment fund or a sovereign wealth fund. And one of the members would have to be someone who has demonstrated experience in development, deployment, or governance of artificial intelligence systems. Then obviously it says that nobody from the family of that commissioner should have equity interests in any of these AI companies, and even ex-employees of these AI companies would not be appointed in this commission, or even the family members of the person, if they have been an employee of any of this AI company, they would still not be applicable, and that would be for a period of 5 years, the duration of a commissioner. Then one of the most important aspects in this bill, which is on page 20, states that the commission shall designate qualified individuals to serve as representatives of the fund on the board of directors of each applicable AI company in which the fund holds equity interests. So there will be representatives of these commission that will be appointed for each of these AI companies, and they would try to get elected into the board of directors of these AI companies. And then it's also stated on page 23 that the commission has to make it public at least annually as to how they used their governance and voting rights. Now let's look at some of the criticisms of this bill. One of the criticisms is by Gary Marcus, who says that this is a wrong solution to the right problem. He does not state what the right solution is, but Gary Marcus, who has been the one who had given testimony in Congress opposite to Sam Altman and OpenAI, and he is a Gen AI skeptic. So there could be many reasons for this, and it could be maybe too soon to develop such a fund, given that some of the AI companies are not really profitable right now, and it could also lead to slowdown of AI innovation. But as per many AI scientists and Anthropic itself, they are calling for regulating and slowdown of AI innovation and AI advancements. Another criticism of this bill is that it could lead to government having too much control of these AI companies, and especially if a government is corrupt and is favoring one AI company over other, this could cause many problems, given that this commission would be having voting rights. And even though it's said that it would be an independent commission, according to Stephen Casper, he points out how even though in the commission no more than 4 members can be there from the same party, it puts no requirements on the party balance of the AI company board members selected by the commission. So yeah, there could lead to a bias in the company board members or representatives selected by this commission. And he says that, in other words, the party that controls 4 commission seats would be able to control 50% of the board positions on essentially all big American tech companies. But he also says that it could be easily fixed in many ways, such as a person nominated by and designated to represent each of these 2 parties in Congress could be done. And he proposes other solutions as well. Another criticism is that, is 50% tax, a one-time tax, really fair, given that these AI companies and investors are putting their own resources, and the AI companies' employees have to do engineering work and effort in order to make those AI models really work. So that's subject to question. Now, going back to the AI 2027 scenario by ex-OpenAI researcher Daniel Kokotajlo, we also see that in the slowdown version of it, the founders and the board members, as well as the US government, try to power grab and there is like a tug of war between them in the slowdown ending of this race to superintelligence, in which each of them is trying to get control over the most capable AI models, because those who control these most capable AI models will be able to have tremendous amount of power. And when we look at China, the Chinese president has been against any welfare, and he says that people should work in order to get anything. But at the same time, the Chinese court had actually prohibited AI companies, or any company in general. It had prohibited any company to do layoffs due to AI, giving the reason of AI. But even those could be bypassed in the country. But we can see that the country of China is following a different approach. So what are your thoughts on this? Is Bernie Sanders right by introducing this AI sovereign fund bill? Or are there any other solutions that can be provided in order to solve this problem? Let me know down in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel if you like this video, and also like it. Thanks for watching.